Hey, hi, howdy, we're back with Mock Draft 2.0. I figured it was high time for an update given our last one came out in early December. College basketball is now just a few games into conference play, and this 26 draft class still has a myriad of standout players that aren't showing signs of slowing down. The NBA rankings too are starting to pan out a little more. For our order, we've gone with the Tankathon spin, with the Pacers, Wizards, and Hornets coming out as the big winners. Number 1 overall are the Indiana Pacers, which I think makes plenty of sense given their recent 13-game losing streak, and the fact they'll certainly be hunting to have the best draft odds possible the rest of the season. Here they'll grab Kansas guard Darryn Peterson, who's still the number 1 option for plenty across the draft space. Peterson's dealt with injuries this season, with the hamstring hampering him in or completely keeping him from several early season games, but he's looked much more himself as a general mover in his last 2 games against TCU and West Virginia. He's just a stellar talent, capable of blistering shot making, pacey driving, athletic and efficient finishing, elite defense, and more. I'd like to see a little more teammate involvement, but it's far from a legit concern right now with Kansas kind of all over the place. Peterson would be an unbelievable fit next to Tyrese Halliburton, with both players being able to create for the other at all 3 phases. That would immediately be one of, if not the best backcourt in the league. AJ Dybantsa would obviously be considered by the Pacers first overall as a potential superstar scorer, though he slips just barely to the Wizards here at number 2. Dybantsa has been the one player in this top 3 with claim to real in-season development, looking like a great prospect earlier in the season and quickly evolving into a number 1 level talent. Even accounting for these areas not being perfect, I think he has more than answered playmaking and defensive concerns for a 6'9" prospect averaging over 23 points per game, and I'm far from worried about the 3-point volume either. Most simply, while I don't have him first here, I wouldn't even blink if I heard AJ Dybantsa's name first on draft night. He is that good of a talent. Having just traded for Trae Young, this is all the Wizards would need to build out a long-term core of Sarr, Johnson, Coulibaly, and George. Third overall are the Charlotte Hornets, who jumped 3 spots to grab the last of the number 1 level prospects in Duke's Cam Boozer. Boozer's last here, but certainly not least. He has been one of the top forces I've seen in college basketball in some time at just 18 years old, offering strength and touch-based scoring on the interior, a workable 3-point shot, elite rebounding, lightning quick processing, and plenty more high field indicators. Boozer's a natural fit everywhere due to the fact he's a winner that can do so many different things, but I absolutely love this fit with Charlotte given the high-end core of Con Knipple and Brandon Miller. Highfield worked out at the Hornets draft last year, and this would be an elite addition in that regard here. Fourth overall are the Atlanta Hawks, who will be picking via the Pelicans, and they'll get Caleb Wilson, who seems to be firmly planted as the number 4 prospect for most. It's understandable Wilson's here on the outside looking in of tier 1, but ahead of the next group given his overall production. Over 19 points, nearly 11 rebounds, and 3 stocks per game. But there are also some real limitations in the ranged shooting and some finishing concerns that leave him slightly less shiny than Peterson, Boozer, Dybantsa. The New Look Hawks likely don't care much for those limitations, grabbing an interior force they haven't seen in some time that can dunk everything, is a better passer than given credit for, and has a great high motor defensive presence. They've long wanted length and versatility, and Wilson is just that. Fifth overall are the Sacramento Kings, who at 8-30 on the season finally seem ready to revisit the upper ranks of the NBA draft after a few seasons away. Here they get the perfect fit in who would currently be my 5th overall prospect in Houston's Kingston Flemings. Flemings has quickly emerged as one of the top point guard options in this draft, and we're well past the point of limited sample with him. He is a very legitimate player. He's elite in getting to his spots as likely the fastest ball handler in the class. He has fluidity in getting into his jumper and can really defend. His standout performance against Texas Tech, where he guarded Christian Anderson some and hit big shots down the stretch, feels notable. He'd offer the Kings a long-term point guard prospect, which they don't have right now, and he's not dissimilar in play style to a former Sacramento guard who earned a few all-star bids. The Brooklyn Nets earned the number 6 pick, though they might not be here for long as they've looked a little bit improved in recent weeks. Should they land this high, I like a swing for the fences given their current position, and I think Louisville's Michael Brown Jr. is that swing, fitting into what they look for stylistically. Brown's seen an underwhelming start to the season, battling inefficiencies early and now a lower back injury that has kept him sidelined for a few games. Still, the vision's always going to be there for a bigger guard who can handle, shoot, and pass, and I'd expect a statistical bounce back sooner rather than later if he can get healthy. The Nets gambled on several handlers last season, none of which should deter them from the essential blue chip version of what they were hunting for. Brown would be a great stylistic fit next to MPJ, Yegor Dioman, and more. The Utah Jazz grabbed the 7th overall pick, and I have them nabbing one of my favorite bigs in the class in Washington's Hannes Steinbach. Steinbach came in as a decorated international player, and even still his early season averages of 18 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 assists per game have been pretty impressive. He's on the older side for a true freshman, but his combination of touch on the interior, elite offensive rebounding, and potential for three-point shooting are enticing for teams in need of frontcourt depth. With the Jazz seemingly not married to their current frontcourt, a gamble on Steinbach to be another nice offensive piece in their core makes sense. There's plenty of other pathways this team could take, and I get gambling on a more defensive-minded guy, but I also think Steinbach is this good. The Clippers are now 8-2 in their last 10, and the Thunder's hopes of adding a top 3 pick are quickly dissolving, though they're still playing with house money here in the top 10. I will put a hand up and say that this is a somewhat flawed pick here with Axel Lindeborg at number 8. This is pretty rich for Lindeborg range-wise, and the Thunder don't have a long history of taking older prospects, as Lindeborg will be nearly 24 years old on draft night, but Lindeborg profiles perfectly as a Thunder, a versatile scorer and defender at nearly 6'10", who can play a wide range of roles from wing to small ball center. I also think the Thunder can afford to bet on an older prospect here given where they're at. They have 2 Project D type players yet to play in Nikola Topic and Thomas Sorber, and if the goal is to backfill the roster with talented role players, Lindeborg would be ready-made to step in. This continues to be a pretty popular fit among mock drafts, with the Dallas Mavericks chancing a pick on Alabama guard LeBaron Philon. Given the Mavs' current range and needs, I think it makes plenty of sense. If they were higher, you could gamble on better options, and lower you could risk a few others, but with them holding it down in this range, I do think Philon is the play, which is why I've made this pick again. Even accounting for the Mavericks keeping Kyrie Irving on the roster, which is possible given their lack of a future pick cash, Philon would offer a potent handler off the bench who could score, pass, defend, and hopefully shoot on decent volume. He wouldn't have to take the reins in year 1, but I think bolstering the team's guard depth with the ever-versatile Flag rostered, as well as solid long-term bigs, is the play. Rounding out the top 10 are the Memphis Grizzlies, who swing on a defensive-minded prospect in Kentucky's Jaden Quaintance. Quaintance has had an up-and-down few games in his start for Kentucky and return from injury, but that won't erase just how monstrous he was on the defensive side of the court at just 17 years old, racking up 3.7 stocks per game at Arizona State. He's undersized for a 5 at 6'9", but has already shown some flashes of versatility both off the dribble and from range to warrant some upside talks, and his athleticism is among the best in the class for bigs, sure to help him translate well to the NBA. The Grizzlies have some versatile bigs, and Quaintance would allow them to either shake things up or employ several different impact players across all 48 minutes. At 17 and 21 with potential moves still to be made, the Bucks seem destined to be a late lottery team, and here they'll pick up likely the top international option in Breakers forward Kareem Lopez. There's been no new information on the Giannis Antetokounmpo situation, whether he's going to remain part of the long-term vision or if he'll be the highest profile tradee in some time. Obviously, his situation is going to be important to team building for Milwaukee, so I've chosen a player here that I think toes the line somewhat between immediate fit and developmental bet. Lopez, a 6'9" forward, has seen some improvement across the board in the NBL, averaging more points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks, while shooting better across the board from last season. He's got some interesting handling ability, though his affinity for simply stuffing the stat sheet in a position of need should be reason enough to value him. At number 12 are the Chicago Bulls, and they'll gamble on Michigan's 7'3" big in Ade Mara, one of the more unique prospects in the entire class. 12 is mighty high for Mara, who even as a junior doesn't have premier counting stats, but given his absurd length and genuine ball skills, mixed with the growing need for size in the NBA, I think there's going to be a market for Mara, and I think it's going to end up pretty high. Nikola Vucevic is in the final year of his deal, and I think the Bulls could stand to grab their center of the future, who can block shots, play finish, and push the ball alongside Chicago's other lengthy bets in Josh Giddey, Matas Buzelis, and hopefully, eventually, Noah Asenge. Again, this is high for Mara, not quite where I personally would rate him, but I could certainly see teams getting trigger happy with one of the better, more sizable bigs in this class. Spurs fans, rejoice. I have not drafted you a point guard, instead opting for a wing/shooting guard here in Baylor's Cameron Carr, who I really like as a fit on this San Antonio team for the foreseeable future. Carr's been a breakout star for Baylor this year. He saw 2 non-factor seasons with Tennessee, but is now scoring upwards of 20 points per game with high-flying dunks and efficient, high-volume three-point shooting. At 6'5", he'll be pretty refined to an off-ball role, which is totally okay given San Antonio's trio of handlers. As if an athletic talent and confident three-point shooter wasn't impactful enough in the long term next to Victor Wembanyama, Carr's also averaging 1.7 blocks per game and would be a real weapon as an off-ball shot blocker in the Spurs core. Capping off the lottery is the Portland Trail Blazers, who are among the most middling of teams this year at 19-20, though they've been plenty hurt throughout the early part of the season. This is quite a bit higher than I personally would look to add Illinois guard Keaton Wagler, but this feels like a pretty undeniable fit. At 6'6", Wagler's done more to raise his stock than nearly anyone this cycle, coming in as a 4-star on few radars. He has very quickly earned Brad Underwood's trust among several other draft hopefuls, scoring the ball by navigating the pick and roll, hitting 40% of his 5 attempted threes per game, and fitting in elsewhere by grabbing boards and playmaking at a more than 2-to-1 rate. The Trailblazers are among the worst shooting teams in the league, making Wagler's silky three-point shooting the key, but his on-ball prowess and playmaking could also help a team that employs several different guards too, some of which aren't exactly longer-term options. At number 15 are the Golden State Warriors, in desperate need of a youthful talent infusion as they continue to navigate a few different timelines. Here they'll grab a blue chip forward in Arizona's Koa Pete. Pete's an interesting case. At 6'8" with a great combination of physicality, athleticism, and touch on the interior, he can rebound, is a fine passer and defender, and he's been fairly unstoppable as a collegiate scorer. On the flip side, he's hit just 3 triples in 16 games, and if he isn't able to really stretch the floor, he'll stand out as a tweener for all the wrong reasons. Pete feels like a worthy gamble for the Warriors, who haven't been shy about taking chances on non-shooting forwards before and could stand to develop a prospect over the next handful of years. The Hawks are back on the clock after drafting Caleb Wilson at number 4, grabbing Florida's Thomas Hauck 16th overall. Atlanta could stand to add a lead guard or guard depth of any kind after offloading Trae Young, but something tells me they aren't going to be chomping at the bit to add guards of the undersized variety, and that's almost all that's left to this point. Instead, they get another toolsy, versatile player at 6'9" in Hauck that can fit in athletically, thrive off ball, and win in the trenches. Where Caleb Wilson has to function as a true forward, Hauck can toggle, playing real reps on the wing, especially if he can continue an upward trajectory shooting the ball. And this leaves the Hawks to look elsewhere to nab a lead guard, which is likely the move timeline-wise next to Jalen Johnson and co. anyways. 17th overall, we have the Miami Heat, grabbing who could be the single most polarizing player in the draft in Arkansas guard Darius Acuff Jr. At 6'3", there's some warranted concerns with Acuff. He's very ball dominant, a difficult shot maker, and his pathway towards replicable offense at the NBA level feels a bit scarier than some of the other lead guards. Despite that, there is no denying his early season production for Arkansas: 20 points per game, 6 assists with a 3-to-1 ATO, and more importantly, just being an absolutely commanding presence for a decent Razorbacks team. Poise, game control, it factor, whatever you want to call it, he's had it. Acuff won't be a guard for everyone, but this feels like the exact middle round player the Heat would bet on and turn into a star. The Grizzlies are back up at number 18, grabbing one of the hottest names in the class in Vanderbilt guard Tyler Tanner. Tanner, a 6-foot lead guard, is amid a breakout sophomore season with the Commodores, averaging over 17 points, 5.5 assists, and 2.5 steals per game on elite splits all over. He is obviously undersized, but he dunks the ball like a madman, has a 6'5" wingspan, and just generally plays bigger than he is, with a real feel that's certain to catch teams' eyes. I think this is pretty rich for Tanner personally, but he is certain to have both teams and pundits that aren't afraid of his size due to his overall makeup, and I think he especially profiles out as a Grizzlies type bet. At number 19, we have one of my personal favorite players in this class, Iowa State's Joshua Jefferson. Jefferson's been a solid impact player for years now at both St. Mary's and Iowa State, but has taken real strides towards looking like a bona fide professional this year by shouldering more of the scoring load, boosting his assists per game and maintaining his status as a do-it-all forward for one of the top teams in the country. If he can continue to shoot the ball, which he has in his senior season, I think there is no question he's an NBA contributor. The Thunder have already left this mock with a do-it-all forward in Yaxel Lindeborg. I like one more chance on an easy plug-and-play Thunder, with another first-round pick still waiting. At number 20 are the Charlotte Hornets with a brand new shiny star forward in Boozer, and they'll round out their future core by taking UConn wing Braylon Mullins. Mullins saw a slow start due to injury, but the 6'6" wing is starting to come on for the Huskies with versatile three-point shooting, paired with a pretty connective skill set. In the least, Mullins should be able to reliably space the floor, and there's also some upside in his ball skills. This would effectively help the Hornets to lean into a high-octane three-point attack, continuing to bank on good, solid basketball players. 21st are the Toronto Raptors, who are performing well this season as the East's 4 seed. Here they'll get Duke's Patrick Ngumba as their big of the future. Ngumba's lived up to the year 2 expectations so far, sitting in double-digit scoring, with 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1.5 blocks across just 24 minutes per game for the Blue Devils. At 6'11", he's shooting 64% overall with premier finishing, and has enticing skills as an eventual stretch player too. The Raptors are thin in terms of true bigs, mostly utilizing Jakob Poeltl, but they have a myriad of players that can do so many things like Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, RJ Barrett, and Colin Murray-Boyles. I really like Ngumba here as a player who fits into that skill-wise and could facilitate in a run-and-gun core that emphasizes ball and player movement. The now white-hot Boston Celtics pick at number 22, unable to let a blue-chip talent in Nate Ament slip any further. Ament, at 6'10" with real face-up skill, is a tantalizing prospect, but there's no question his freshman campaign with Tennessee is off to a predictably rocky start. 40% shooting from the field, 27% from 3, obvious physicality and finishing concerns. Even still, the upside with Ament as a lengthy sharpshooter who can play finish and impact the game defensively remains there. The Celtics are a pros pro organization, and they could certainly do worse than betting on a talented 5-star such as Ament with the 22nd pick. The Thunder's third and final pick stands at number 23 via the Rockets, and they'll grab Iowa's Bennett Sturtz, a hard player to place within the first round of this NBA draft. I considered Sturtz all the way up at number 9 for Dallas, and a few other spots where guards were taken, but he's an interesting case with his D2 background, exceptionally slow pace for a lead guard, and just generally different style. Sturtz should be able to play off the ball, but might not be best served there with most of his skills tailor-made to have the rock. Regardless of those facts, the Thunder haven't been shy about simply taking good basketball players, and I think Sturtz fits into that mentality comfortably here at number 23. The Knicks, at 4-6 in their last 10, pick at number 24, grabbing a project wing in Baylor's Tunde Yesufu. Yesufu stands at 6'5" and is among the more physically pro-ready players in this mock draft. He has a long history of impact and is now averaging 18 points per game on 49% shooting with the Bears. There are certainly issues with Yesufu, namely just how he projects to be an efficient offensive player without strong three-point shooting, and iffy shot selection and so-so passing. But there's also plenty of good in his productivity, motor, and defensive upside on the wing. The Knicks have done well in employing a multi-tooled 6'5" player in Josh Hart, and I like Yesufu as a developmental back-end add. The Luka Doncic and LeBron James-led Lakers grab Houston forward Chris Senac Jr. here at number 25, hoping to bolster their front court with an upside play. There's tons of parallels between Nate Ament and Chris Senac, namely slow starts, size, face-up potential, and upside. Senac stands at 6'11", and while he hasn't been prolific as a scorer just yet, he's come along some in recent weeks and is a good rebounder at 7.7 per game. Issue being, Senac just hasn't shown the ability yet to consistently play like a true big, failing to be massively efficient around the rim and seeing just half a block per game without real intensity on that end. The fully realized version of Chris Senac in the NBA would be a great fit next to the magicianal Luka Doncic, seeing as he could roll, pop, and hopefully defend the rim. The Timberwolves grab one of my favorite prospects in this draft at number 26 in Arizona guard Braden Burries. At a legit 6'4", Burries is a combo guard who's emerged as a star for the top-ranked Wildcats of late, scoring both on and off ball, rebounding, passing, and playing some very real defense. Burries is smooth, plays at his own pace, and impacts nearly every facet of the game. I get positional concerns seeing as he's not yet shooting the ball at an unbelievable rate, but I'd rate him higher than this even accounting for the 35% three-point shooting mark. I especially like Burry's fit with Minnesota. They're in need of a true point guard, but another draft fit likely isn't the best option for the Wolves at this stage, and Burry's could toggle on and off the ball, doing all the little things alongside Anthony Edwards or in reserve. At number 27, we have the Nikola Jokic-led Denver Nuggets grabbing Arkansas guard Malik Thomas. Thomas has been really intriguing this season, coming off the bench as a combo guard for the Razorbacks, offering up 15 points per game, highlighted by the three-point shooting, with plus passing and some real defensive impact. The scoring efficiency has not been perfect, but I'd expect this to get better generally, and especially with an unlockable passer such as Jokic. Thomas might be a multi-year project, but could really thrive long-term as an impact guard in this Nuggets core. The Cavaliers grab one of the top guard options here at number 28 in Texas Tech standout Christian Anderson. Anderson has seen massive improvement as a sophomore, blossoming his output to nearly 20 points, 7.5 assists, and 1.7 steals per game. He's been an unreal offensive force for the Red Raiders, mostly due to his blistering three-point shooting and pure playmaking. Anderson is unquestionably talented, but I'm a little more scared about his NBA assimilation compared to other first-round guards here due to size. Despite that, Cleveland feels like a great fit if they're looking to break up their longtime core, with the trading of Darius Garland being the natural progression. Anderson would be hard-pressed to step in and be Darius Garland, but there's some overlap, and the Cavs could at least put him in position to succeed systemically off the bench. The East-leading Detroit Pistons happily sit at number 29 given their turnaround, reinforcing their front court by selecting North Carolina's Henri Visar. Visar has continued his breakout UNC campaign with a monster performance against Wake Forest, showcasing all the things that pro teams will covet. Touch, three-point shooting, rebounding, plus passing, and some defensive impact all wrapped up in a 7-foot frame. I made this pick in my last mock, but I really stand by it. Even if Detroit manages to hang on to Jalen Duren in restricted free agency, I like a pick that gives them some front court optionality, with Visar's pure size and three-point shooting as two things that they don't have presently. Rounding out the first round in our mock is the Washington Wizards, chancing a pick on Virginia Tech guard Neoclis Avdalas. There's tons to like with Avdalas, a legit guard skill set in a 6'9" frame, some of the best passing in the class, very solid defense, but there's also been some real lowlights with inefficient scoring all over, multiple 5+ turnover games, a lack of pro athleticism, and just general inconsistency. Even still, some team is going to bet on Avdalas figuring things out, and I won't blame them for it. This pick especially makes sense as a high upside swing for Washington, given they've already left this mock with AJ Dybantsa.